The perennial question is, why aren't Muslim countries helping the Muslims in China, the Muslims in India, the Muslims in Kashmir, the Muslims in Palestine, the Muslims who are in Burma, in Syria, in Yemen? All of these countries and more, you have Muslims who are being oppressed, who are being killed, who are suffering. Why don't Muslim powers who have actual economic and military ability, why don't those countries help? The reality is, and I hate to break it to you, but these countries have to worry about their economy. They have to worry about the price of gas, the price of food, the price of trade. This is very important. It would not be fair for a Muslim country to try to help oppressed Muslims in China or India or Palestine if that means gas prices go up, if that means that people have to pay a little bit more at the grocery store, or the certain president of that country won't be invited to certain kinds of councils or certain kinds of meetings within America or Europe. That wouldn't be fair, right? Hopefully you realize how cynical this type of reasoning is. You're willing to sacrifice your brothers and sisters in Islam. You're willing to violate clear principles in Islam for the sake of a few dollars or for the sake of some very cynical economic considerations or diplomatic considerations. This is not acceptable. And as Muslims, hopefully we can all recognize this, but the question is, do we use that same kind of reasoning in our own lives? Do we have that same kind of cynical approach where we're willing to compromise on clear principles within Islam for the sake of convenience, for the sake of practicality or so-called pragmatism? This is a question we have to ask ourselves first and foremost. Allah says clearly in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. So this is a connection between what is in ourselves, our state as individual Muslims, and the condition of the Ummah as a whole. Are we doing our part, or are we exemplifying and implementing the same kind of tired, quote-unquote, pragmatism by violating clear principles of the deen for the sake of dunya? And this reminds me of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he says towards the end of times, all the nations will descend upon the Ummah as if they're descending onto a meal from every direction. And this is a kind of attack. And the companions asked the Prophet ﷺ, is it because of our numbers will be small? Will there'll just be too few Muslims to fight back? And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, you'll have many numbers, but the problem is that Allah will have removed the fear of you from the hearts of the enemy. And He will put in your heart al-wahan. Al-wahan. What's al-wahan? And the Prophet ﷺ explained, this is the love of dunya and the fear of death. And this is something that is very analogous to kind of practical reasoning for the sake of dunya. The word that the Prophet ﷺ used for fear is mahaba. Mahaba, which comes from the Arabic word hayba. And hayba is different from khawf. Hayba is referring to a kind of respectful fear. For example, you will have a respectful fear of a man who is strong and principled and someone who is going to stand firm for what he believes in. You might be afraid of such a person because you don't want to cross that person. But you'll have fear of a snake as well, but it's not hayba. This is not the kind of fear that is referred to in this hadith. So Allah is going to take this mahaba, take the hayba, the fear, the respectful fear of Muslims from the hearts of those who are going to attack, the nations that are going to attack the Muslim Ummah. And we see exactly this in this day and age. There is no respect for Muslims. You can just walk right over them. You can do whatever you want with them. You don't have to worry about any kind of consequence. And these Muslim nations are embodying exactly that. They're embodying exactly this kind of practicality, prioritizing dunya over principle, prioritizing dunya over their brothers and sisters in Islam. Are we having that kind of lack of principles in our individual lives as well? When the sister takes off her hijab because she doesn't want to stick out, when the Muslim brother shaves his beard and changes his name to Mo instead of Muhammad in order to avoid scrutiny, when the Muslim business owner decides that it's okay to sell alcohol because otherwise I'll go out of business, all these kinds of pragmatic calculations that violate Islam for the purpose of a dunyawi benefit. Are these a part of our lives? And if so, what are we doing to change our hearts, to change our internal state so that Allah will change the situation of the Ummah as a whole and for us as a community? How can we do this? We need to ask Allah for His guidance. We need to ask Allah to keep us firm on Islam and to not be afraid of losing in dunya, because there is the akhirah. This is where we have to orient ourselves towards the akhirah, towards seeking the pleasure of Allah, Ridwan Allah, instead of filling our bellies, filling our pockets, filling our bank accounts. This is not the priority. If we implement this kind of approach, this akhirah focused approach in our individual lives, in our families, then inshallah this will manifest on a grand scale, on a macro level, and the situation of the ummah will change for the better, bi'idhnillah. Assalamu alaikum guys. If you enjoyed this video and you appreciate this kind of thinking about Islam and modernity, then I highly encourage you to enroll at Al-Asna Institute. We have courses that will teach you how to think about these issues and how to critique modernity and these ideologies in order for you to strengthen your faith in Islam and fight the kinds of doubts that paralyze Muslims in the modern world. Enroll today.